You wait all year long for spring. You prep your garden and you stare at your beautiful leafy peony plant just waiting for those massive dinner plate-sized blooms to finally pop. And then, absolutely nothing. Just a giant bush of leaves. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling what is quite literally one of the ultimate gardening frustrations. But don't worry, you are definitely not alone. We're going to dive right into the exact science-backed reasons why this floral failure happens, and more importantly, how you can fix it. It's incredibly frustrating, right? I mean, you've watered it, you've watched over it like a hawk, and the plant looks incredibly healthy with all this lush, gorgeous green foliage. But it just refuses to produce a single flower. Honestly, it kind of feels like a betrayal. But here's the thing. Peonies are highly complex, long-lived perennials, and that have very specific physiological needs. When they don't bloom, it's not just random bad luck. The plant is actually trying to tell you something very specific about its environment. So let's figure out what it's saying. In this explainer, we are systematically breaking down the top reasons for peony bloom failure. We aren't just guessing here, we're looking at the actual biology of the plant from the roots deep in the soil all the way up to the tips of the leaves. By the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what is holding your plant back. Plus, you'll walk away with the practical, actionable steps you need to get those spectacular blooms back where they belong in your garden.
All right, let's get right into culprit number 1, the hidden crown, which is all about planting depth.
We're starting with the absolute biggest offender. Believe it or not, horticultural research actually shows that a whopping 65% of non-blooming peonies in home gardens are just planted at the wrong depth. See, there's a massive biological difference between the two main types of peonies. Herbaceous peonies, those are the ones that die all the way back to the ground every winter, they grow from a crown with these little pink or white buds called eyes. Those eyes need to sit just 1 to 2 inches below the soil surface. Why? Because they actually rely on specific temperature fluctuations right near the surface in late summer to trigger their flower bud formation. If they're buried under 3 inches of mulch and soil, they miss those temperature cues completely. Now, tree peonies, on the other hand, are woody shrubs that are often grafted onto different roots. They actually need to be planted deeply, like 4 to 6 inches down, so that top part can eventually grow its own root system. Confusing these two is such a common mistake. So, how do we actually fix a deeply planted herbaceous peony? Well, it's all about the Goldilocks principle. Not too deep, not too shallow. In early fall, you'll want to carefully excavate around the plant. Just gently lift the clump and scrape away the excess soil from the crown. And here's a great little trick. This is an absolute lifesaver when you replant. Lay a popsicle stick right across the hole to mark the exact soil level. That way, you ensure those eyes are sitting precisely at 1.5 inches deep before you backfill the dirt. Moving right along to culprit number 2, shade starvation. This one's kind of sneaky because, well, gardens change over time. That perfectly sunny spot you picked out a decade ago might now be heavily shaded by maturing trees or growing shrubs. And 6 is the magic number here. Peonies require an absolute minimum of 6 hours of direct sunlight every single day to gather enough solar energy to form buds. Think about it. Creating those massive, fragrant flowers takes an enormous amount of energy. If they are sitting in the shade, they're going to prioritize survival over reproduction. You might end up with a tall, spindly plant with lovely leaves, but it simply won't have the energy reserves left to form buds. So if your once sunny garden has slowly turned into a shaded woodland, there is really only one actionable fix. You have to move the plant. The absolute best time to transplant a peony is in early fall, typically September, once the really intense heat of summer is finally over. You want to hunt down a south or west-facing site that just gets blasted with sun. Keep in mind, moving a peony can temporarily reset its blooming clock, but honestly, it's the only way to cure light starvation in the long run. Okay, on to culprit number 3, loving them to death with fertilizer. We've all been there, letting our good intentions get the best of us. You can absolutely love a peony to death. It sounds counterintuitive, but your standard garden and lawn care routine might actually be the very thing killing off your flowers. To understand why, let's talk about plant nutrition for a second. When you buy a bag of fertilizer, you'll see 3 numbers on it, right? That's the NPK ratio. Nitrogen is the first number, and that pushes lush green foliage. Phosphorus is the middle number that stimulates root development and pushes flower buds. Potassium is the last number, and that's for overall structural health and disease resistance. So, what does the ideal peony diet actually look like? Well, they thrive on a lean, low-nitrogen diet. A mixture like 5-10-10 or 5-10-5 is pretty much perfect. You want that lower nitrogen and higher phosphorus, and you really only need to apply it just once in early spring when the shoots are a few inches tall. Here is the crucial takeaway. Excessive nitrogen is a total bloom killer. If your peony is this giant, lush, deep green bush with absolutely zero flowers, I guarantee it is getting too much nitrogen. And this actually happens by accident all the time. High nitrogen lawn fertilizer washes right into the flower beds, the plant gets a massive dose of it, and it decides to put all its energy into growing spectacular leaves at the absolute expense of its flowers. So please, keep the lawn food away from your peonies. Which brings us to culprit number 4, the vanishing buds. This deals with literally one of the most heartbreaking phenomena in gardening. You did everything right. The sun is shining, the depth is perfect, the fertilizer's balanced, and your plant actually forms buds. But then they just vanish. They dry up or they turn black right on the stem. This is known as bud blast, and it's essentially a protective reaction. When the plant senses severe environmental stress, it abandons its developing flowers to preserve its root system and just stay alive. This can be triggered by a sudden late spring frost, freezing the delicate tissues, a nasty drought when the buds are trying to form, or a lack of essential nutrients like potassium. It's a harsh biological calculation, but it keeps the plant alive. But what if it's not the weather? Sometimes bud blast is fungal. Botrytis blight, which is also called gray mold, is a super common disease that absolutely thrives in wet, cool spring weather. If your buds are dying, go take a really close look at your plant right now. Do the stems look dark and water-soaked down at the base? Are the young buds turning all brown and papery? If it's humid, you might even see this fuzzy gray coating on them. If you're seeing those symptoms, a fungus is straight up stealing your blooms. If botrytis is the culprit, you have to take action immediately. Get out your pruners and promptly cut away and destroy any infected plant parts. And please, whatever you do not toss them in your compost bin. You also need to improve the air circulation around the plant. But the real long-term fix happens in the fall. Sanitation is literally everything here. After the first hard frost, cut those herbaceous peonies all the way down to the ground and clear all the debris out of the bed. Also make sure you don't have thick layers of mulch piled right up against the stems because that just traps moisture and breeds more fungi. Finally, let's look at culprit number 5, the waiting in. Look, sometimes you haven't done a single thing wrong. The depth is spot on, the light is great, you definitely haven't over-fertilized, and there are absolutely no diseases. Sometimes the only thing you're missing is time. Planting an herbaceous peony is a long-term investment. In year 1, it is completely normal to get 0 blooms. The plant is super busy prioritizing the construction of a massive tuberous root system underground. By year 2, you might get a little tease, maybe 1 to 3 blooms. It really isn't until year 4 or 5 that a peony hits its peak production, where it can push out 50 to 100 blooms in a single season. And hey, if you're growing tree peonies, you're going to need even more patience, because they are woody shrubs that have to develop incredibly strong, thick stems just to hold up those massive flowers. They can take anywhere from 5 to 7 years to consistently bloom. So please know this isn't a failure on your part, and it isn't poor health. It's just the reassuring biological timeline of the plant doing its thing and allocating its resources. All right, that brings us to Section 6, the wrap-up and disclaimer. So if you are out there staring at a flowerless peony, start by checking that crown depth. Remember, no more than 1 to 2 inches deep for the herbaceous varieties. Evaluate your sunlight to ensure they are soaking up those 6 vital hours. And make absolutely sure you aren't accidentally hitting them with high nitrogen lawn fertilizer. Now, of course, I do need to remind you that nature is incredibly dynamic. Every single garden is slightly different. Your local soil conditions, the specific microclimate of your own backyard, and the exact species or hybrid of peony you happen to be growing will all impact your results. Always monitor your plants closely and adjust your care based on what they are telling you. Which leaves us with the most important question of all. What adjustments are you going to make to your peony garden this season? Are you going to get out there and scrape away some soil this fall? Are you finally going to dig up and relocate that shaded plant into the sun? Armed with the science we've covered today, you now have the exact tools you need to solve the mystery of the missing blooms. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and happy gardening.